What do you get from a pampered cow? Spoiled milk. Hey there, kiddos, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, and that you are having a great day. And in today's video, I'd like to sit back, relax, and take a detour from your regularly scheduled TCG discussion to talk about a game I don't really bring up on the channel a whole lot, and that is Force of Will, a rather interesting card game. I've briefly talked about it before. It's like a cross between Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! In terms of card design, mechanics, etc. It's okay as a card game. I think it's fine. I do like it when I play it. But we're not here to talk about my opinion on Force of Will overall. Instead, I'd like to talk about two specific products, because these two releases from quite a while ago in Force of Will's history have something important to teach us, I think, in the world of the TCG markets and finance. They have a lesson about patience to teach us. So today we are talking about two boxes, two releases in general. This is Battle for Ataraxia, widely considered by many to be one of the worst box releases in the game. And not without good reason. It was a very small set, not a very powerful set. It was overprinted, and at the time of release, ask me how I know this, but a lot of stores got saddled with it. To the point where they were just not able to sell it, and Battle for Ataraxia, alongside a few other sets like Curse of the Frozen Casket, I think, really contributed to the near death of the game in the West. Yeah, there was a time where Force of Will almost died because of a handful of sets that just did not do all that well. So we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about another product that released around the same time. This one's not sealed, but this is Vingolf 2, the second specialty set in the game's history. Noteworthy because it's a crossover with a video game series, Valkyria Chronicles, which they don't really do a lot of crossover sets in Force of Will. There's this set and Ghost in the Shell, and those are the only two that I think those are the only two that I'm aware of that Force of Will has even done a crossover with. Now that I think about it. And neither of those sets did that well. Maybe there's a reason Force of Will doesn't do crossover sets. But I digress. Both of these products came out, I want to say, around 2016. And neither of them did particularly well. Each of them has a different story to it. But there was a time when you could buy cases of Battle for Ataraxia, 6 boxes, for $20. Ask me how I know that. $20. And even at that price, it would have been a very hard item to make a profit off of, just because of how undesired the set was. Meanwhile, Vingolf MSRP'd at $30. I want to say it was $30. I could be very wrong about that, but I feel like it was $30, maybe $40. It was the second of the Vingolf sets. The first one, Engage Knights, did phenomenally. Everyone loved that box set. It was a great way to introduce people to the game. Had some nice variant art cards. It was very fun. But Vingolf 2 just ended up being a dud, in part because of the state Force of Will was in at the time. Stores kind of over-ordered it, just because they were expecting it to do as good as the first Vingolf set. But a combination of the set itself not being all that playable and the overall state of Force of Will at the time meant that it did not sell as well. So it was also an awful set. So for a while, you could buy the sealed boxes for about $8 for a sealed box, which is well under what the stores were paying at the time. Like, these stores were liquidating these products. Both Battle for Ataraxia, that's going to be I can't say that 5 times fast. Battle for Ataraxia and Vingolf 2. Well, lo and behold, fast forward just a few years, and no, both of these products, they haven't surged in price. But if you were someone who, in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, if you were someone who bought these products at any point during the first 5 plus years of their life, they would have done absolutely nothing in terms of market movement. They would not have gone up at all. In fact, you probably lost money, especially if you bought them right at release. Okay? But lo and behold, now in 2025, 9 years after the release of each of these two products, okay, Battle for Ataraxia went from, what, under $4 a box? A box? To about $50 a box. That's pretty crazy. And if you don't believe me when I say it was $20 a case, I bought 2 cases because I saw that price tag and I was like, oh wow, I'm grabbing that. So this went from $20 a case to $50 a box over a short period of time too. It was like 2022 to 2025. That change happened, and it largely happened for a few reasons. One, people have been collecting the set. And 2, scarcity. There was not as much of this out there as people thought there was. And then meanwhile, this Vin Golf went from an $8 box to a $20 box, basically over the last 3-ish months. Since September, people have been buying up the last of the stock that was available. It's basically disappeared now under $10. So. And I'm not going to harp on or speculate why this could have happened. I'm not going to talk about, maybe people are trying to manipulate the market or corner the market or whatever. I'm not going to speculate there because, it could be any number of reasons. But I will say that these are 2 examples of booster boxes. Well, they're not really both booster boxes. 2 examples of product that if you were impatient, if you didn't have diamond hands, as the GameStop guys would say, GameStop guys, Game Stonks, whatever. I forget, what do they call themselves? Gamer, it's got to be GameStop, right? That was the big meme stock buyout that people did a few years ago, alongside Dogecoin, when people were freaking out about that stuff and everyone was really getting into investing for a bit. I'm getting off track. If you bought it and it did nothing and you needed cash flow and you sold it, you could have sold it for a loss. And you could have sold it for a loss for over 5 years. That's crazy. But lo and behold, if you bought it at its low, and of course you can't ever know what the low is, but you can see that it's super cheap and you can go, well, it's probably not going to go much lower, right? If you bought it at what you think its low might have been, or close enough to the low, and you just waited 9 years, lo and behold, some profit was there. And this is not a phenomenon that's exclusive to Force of Will. This is, in fact, something that happens with a lot of card games, believe it or not. In fact, it happens kind of miraculously with Pokemon still, where people will ignore certain boxes in favor of the hype boxes, the exciting boxes, the FOMO boxes. But it's also happening in other card games. One that I feel, I've harped on about this for a while, is Yu-Gi-Oh!, where Yu-Gi-Oh! Boxes come out and they collapse in value basically right away. And so many people online have the opinion that they'll never possibly recover their value and that they'll never be worth something one day. And I just don't, again, I just don't think that's true. I don't think it's possible for a world where TCGs are still being played. Huge caveat right there. I don't think it's possible for a world in which TCGs are still played where there is zero chance of their prices going up in the long term. Why do I come to that opinion? Well, if a TCG is being played, that means it's going to have people who want to buy the product. They're especially going to want to buy the product if that product is cheap. Part of the reason people are buying Battle for Ataraxia boxes is not because it's a good box. This is a terrible box. Ask anybody who plays Force of Will what their opinion of Battle for Ataraxia is, and they're going to tell you it's awful. It's dog doo-doo, you know? I can say shit on the channel. I'm an adult. Ask anyone what they think about that product. They're going to tell you it's bad, right? They're not buying it because it's a good product. They're buying it because they just want to play with some cheap Force of Will cards, and it's a cheap box. Not as cheap as it was, but it's even at $50, it's still fairly cheap for a booster box. And I think the same can be said of any card game. You know, if a TCG comes out and it has genuine fans, genuine players, genuine collectors, if a box is cheap enough, those fans, those players, those collectors are going to buy it just to get a cheap hit for their favorite TCG. And sure, maybe the market dies tomorrow and everything goes to zero, but as long as you're, you know, buying things that you otherwise would play if it doesn't sell. Like, let me go back to Battle for Ataraxia. I'm not a huge fan of Force of Will. I do know the rules of the game. I play the game from time to time. So, if Battle for Ataraxia, geez, I can't say that word. If BFA never sells, let's just use the abbreviation, if BFA never sells, and it goes to $0 a box, and I'm straddled with it, well, then someday in the future, when I'm feeling in a Force of Will mood, I might just crack the box open and play with the packs, right? Same is said for Yu-Gi-Oh! If every Yu-Gi-Oh! Box goes to 0 tomorrow, and I'm just in a mood to try some Yu-Gi-Oh! Out 10 years from now, well, then I have a super cheap Yu-Gi-Oh! Box I can pick up and rip open and play with. So, yeah, there's downsides, but the downsides are largely mitigated if you approach things with the mindset of, well, it's something I enjoy anyway. Of course, if you're someone who's just looking to make a quick buck and flip it and you're not really all that passionate about card games, then obviously this is not going to be for you, and you're going to see that kind of downside as a huge downside, especially if you have bills to pay, right? Right? Making money is important if you need cash flow. But the upside potential, especially for products that have been failing for 10 years almost. Battle BFA, 2016, nearly 10 years ago now. So, if prices have been stagnant and the card game itself is still alive, how long will they remain stagnant? I can't see the future. I don't want to be the guy who predicts when things will change. But I will say that the more time passes and the more people are still actively playing a card game, the less likely it is that an individual box that has failed at release is going to stay a failed product. And that's the thing. Time has a habit of changing how things are viewed, regardless of card game, really. Sooner or later, things get old enough, things get scarce enough that people are going to want it just to be the person who has the last of it, right? And of course, yeah, there's those genuine fans who are going to want it just because it's cheap enough to play with on a super budget. So I will go out of there and I will say, you know, if you're a fan of a smaller TCG, if you're a fan of a card game and there's a product out there that you've been kind of eyeing for a while, it's been out for 5+ years and it's still super cheap, you know, maybe you think about it a bit harder. You know, do you want to have it now while it's a failed product, while it's undesirable, while it's not wanted by the wider market? Or do you want to wait and see if maybe in 5 more years it suddenly becomes a hot ticket item, or hot ticket item, gain some value? You know, it's just something to think about, okay? Anyway, that's all I got for you kiddos today. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below if you agree with me, disagree with me, think I'm silly, or like my beard. I'm curious to know, and I do read all the comments you guys leave. I do appreciate all of them because it helps the algorithm out, and the algorithm gives me my cheeseburgers. If you want to donate to my food budget or my card collecting addiction, I do have a Patreon page where patrons get some behind-the-scenes stuff and some fun chats. And if you just want to chat, I also have a Discord page, Discord server, where we just kind of hang out and screech at each other into the wee hours of the night. That's fun too. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.